TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
I'm here with David Smalley, who you know from Dogma Debate, and I'm here with his wife, Brandy, as well. They are in Chicago, which they'll tell you about why. But hey, it's very rare that anyone comes to Chicago, period. So if any time I can have a guest here, that's always fun. So we're in my house. We have some stuff I'm excited to talk about. So thank you guys for coming out this way.
Hey, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Tell me why you're in Chicago.
We're in Chicago for the BEA, the Book Expo America. It's, I believe it's the largest book expo in the United States, maybe in the world. I think it's in the world, actually, because there are some companies that spend like 50, 60 grand to be at this conference. I mean, it is massive. When you go like to a secular conference and you see these little tables set up, you're like, now I look at that and go, oh, that's adorable. I mean, that's so
that's
cute.
That's like the side room in a small part of the BEA.
Our table sections at the atheist conventions, like our main table areas, to me it looks like the VIP lounge at this expo. It is massive. I mean, you walk in. I mean, there are people who have expos like spaces bigger than my house. Like my house, I think is like 2,200 square feet.
Yeah,
and there's like people with 3,000 and 4,000 square foot lots that are fully carpeted. I mean, it's gorgeous.
And what are they all? What are all these people doing here at these tables?
The big guys are there for their publishers. They are individual distribution companies that are wanting to find new books and then put them on the shelves at Barnes and Noble and Walmart and Target and things like that. There are graphic artists walking around, illustrators trying to connect with children's book publishers and authors. I mean, it's everybody you could imagine. I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there signing autographs.
He's an author now?
He's an author. So he was signing his book. So we were there for Tiny Thinkers, the Tiny Thinkers series, and we got to explain it to a lot of people. And it was just really cool seeing mainstream America learn about something the secular community has been working on for like a year and a half. And so the book is called Charlie and the Tortoise, and I would hold the book up, and I would say, these are science books for kids. And they would perk up and say, oh, that's really cool. They're thinking educational. They'll say, what age group? And I say, oh, it's 4 to 8. I would point to the label that says Tiny Thinkers. I'll say, it's actually a series. We have a total of 40 scientists that we've written about. And the exciting thing about these books is they're actually they're not fictional characters. They're real-life scientists. And so we take these scientists and we...
So when you say Charlie, you're talking...
Yeah, well, here's the thing. And this is where you can tell where that person stands on this issue.
Yeah.
And so I intentionally saved that for the end.
Okay.
And so
Sorry to burst that.
No, it's cool. What I do is I show it to them and I say, and this little boy... so basically what we do is we tell the story about the accomplishments of that scientist, but we retell it as though he was a child going on an adventure. But a lot of the information is still factual. So I'll start flipping through the pages and I say, oh, this is, this boy named Charlie is said to have gone on this journey across the ocean. And he comes across some islands and notices that the birds are the same, but some of the beaks are different. And they're shaking their head. Okay. And I flip through and I say, and then he meets this tortoise who's 200 years old and can actually say, I've seen changes over time. These birds didn't always look like this. And then they're either still nodding or they just stop and stare at me. Like that's the point.
Because they figured it out.
You can tell. Like I'm like, oh wait, you're with the Christian publishing company, aren't you? So and then once we get to that point, I flip to the end and say, and then you find out that this little boy Charlie actually found out that all animals are ultimately connected and we should all really take care of each other. And then you find out at the end, it says, Charlie grew up to be known as, and then you turn the last page, and there's a picture of Charles Darwin as an adult, and we have facts about Charles Darwin. And most of the time, like 95%, they would perk up even bigger and go, wow, that is amazing. That is awesome. What other scientists are you doing?
Right.
And I start going, Carl Sagan, Richard Feynman, and I just start spitting out names, and they get more and more excited. The vast majority of these people were super pumped. Every now and then they would hit the brakes at Charles Darwin and just be like, "Oh, that's nice, goodbye," and they just slowly disappear into the.
So how many books
distance.
have you done so far? Is that the one that's out right now?
There are 40 that are written.
Wow.
Charlie is the one that is out that you can buy on Amazon. You can have it in your hands. The one on Richard Feynman, and by the way, Cara Santamaria wrote the foreword for the Charlie book. And then we have the Richard Feynman book is next. It's called Richie Doodles. And Lawrence Krauss wrote the foreword for that one. And the third book, I think we're going to end up doing Ada Lovelace. I want to bring in more diversity. Yeah. I don't want to have our first 3 books to be 3 old white guys.
Right. Well, and she's worthwhile too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's several women that the author's written about, which you know the author. He's based right here in Chicago. He's Mario, MJ Mouton.
Okay.
From he did some work with Kids Heart Kids.
So Mario's writing all these books? Who's doing the illustrations? How did you walk me through how this goes from it's a cool idea, but then how do you actually execute it? How do you know Mario? How do you get this started?
Yeah, so I was on tour, and apparently Mario wrote these stories for his daughter when she was 5 years old. She's now 9. So the stories have just been sitting there. And what he would do is he would read her these bedtime stories that he wrote. He made them up because he wanted to teach her about science, but so he made it rhyme. And the guy knows so much about these scientists. He's all completely self-taught, which are some of our favorite scientists in the secular community don't come with PhDs. Guys like Aaron Ra that we listen to and go, wow, that's phenomenal. I love that science behind that.
They know how to communicate it.
Yeah, they didn't go out there and they spent hours and hours and hours researching on their own, and that raw knowledge is just so valuable. And so he did. That's how he did. He's a construction worker. He's a project manager for construction, and he dove into this and learned about it. So he's so passionate. He's so excited about it. He knows so much about these scientists that he's able to write the stories and make them rhyme and make it funny. And so I was on tour, and he apparently was seeking out someone in the secular community to do some publishing. And I went, he invited me to his home for gumbo while I was passing through. Yeah. So Jerry DeWitt, which is a mutual friend of ours, invited me over to join them. And I was sitting there eating gumbo, and he's like, oh, I want to read this story to you. And people are constantly pitching stuff to me.
Sure.
Constantly. I'm sure you get to say, hey, read this blog, read this thing, listen to this podcast, which is fine. I love doing it, and I love helping folks. But I'm constantly getting pitches. So I'm thinking, okay, this is the cost of the gumbo, right? I eat the gumbo, I listen to the pitch. It's like a timeshare, whatever. This is fine. I'll listen. I have no problem with that. I enjoy that type of content. And so I'm eating, and he's talking kind of in the background. I'm paying attention about 90%. I'm listening. And I hear, Galapagos Islands, and I go, oh, that's kind of familiar. A little boy named Charlie, and then he gets to finches, and I'm chewing slower now, thinking, what's going on here? 70% in, I realize he's talking about that Charlie is Charles Darwin.
Yeah.
And
because it didn't make sense at first, but now when you get into it, yeah.
And then I got chills, and I was like, that was amazing. A kid's book gave me an aha moment.
Yeah.
That's kind of rare. Usually you see the kid's book twist coming a mile away,
right.
And I just didn't see this one, especially with the tortoise.
I get it. Elmo's red. He's a monster.
Right.
Something like that. I figured it out.
Right. And then I said, do you have any more? He was like, I've got 40. And I'm like, you keep reading, I'll keep eating gumbo.
Yeah.
And he read me a bunch of stories. I think he read me 19 that night.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought, this is phenomenal. I was like, man, we've got to put this in front of people. And so he planned on pitching it to me as a publishing idea.
Yeah.
Didn't have to. All he had to do was read it, and I was like, can we publish these?
Yeah.
And we signed a contract, and we've been moving forward ever since.
So who's illustrating these?
It's an independent illustrator that we contracted. We found.
Okay.
We put out a notice and let people try out, and we hired him independently. So,
okay.
His name is Hezro.
Okay. So you have this book out. When you're at BEA and you're telling people about this book, what are you hoping they do?
It all depends on who they are. There are a lot of librarians there. We want the librarians to take a sample back, talk to their buyer, and say, we want this book in our library.
And the whole series, hopefully.
Right. And we want 20 copies in our school. And we want every school in America to have 20 copies of Charlie and the Tortoise.
And just to be clear, these are not atheist books. These are just science, cool books.
Exactly. There are tons and tons of Christians who are theistic evolutionists and completely accept evolution and say that happened by the hand of God. This book does not challenge that. This book, most kids, you have to understand, they don't get into the biology of anyone important because biographies are boring. They just are. They're thick unless you grow up learning about someone or you're interested in where this person came from and you seek it out as an adult or a college student or a high school student for a paper. But a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, they're not going to learn about Darwin. As a matter of fact, at least in the Texas school systems, guys, we're not learning about biology till somewhere between 7th and 9th grade, right? You're not in 4th grade talking about evolution. It just does not happen. And so this is a way to introduce the concept of scientists and that people are important. And the coolest thing about these books is that these aren't fictional characters going on fictional adventures that are only in fantasy. These are real people who did real stuff, changed our world, and you can do the same.
And so once the book ends, once the book ends, you're not done with the fantasy. You can go research and learn way more.
Every book ends inviting the reader to go on an adventure they would like to have to help change the world as well. So that's the beauty of it. So if they're librarians, we want them to go back to their buyer. If they're educators, we want them to push the school district to introduce this book into their curriculum. I mean, it's not a textbook, but I mean, as a former teacher, you can take this and say, we're going to read this book, and then we're going to write a paper about whatever, either it's English or science or whatever. What's that book that Little House on the Prairie was based after? Laura...
Louisa May Alcott or Ingalls Wilder?
Laura Ingalls Wilder, yeah. So my daughter had to read that book for some sort of project. Yeah. And then they did a paper about it and talked about, and there was prayer in there, there were God stuff in there. And I'm thinking, okay, they read the book and it was an English thing and that's what they had to do. Okay, fine. Why not this book? Why not first grade? Read about Charlie and the Tortoise, talk about which parts were fantasy, which parts were science, how we tell the difference, and can anyone guess who Charlie was based on? No one's going to know. Then we learn about the real facts of Charles Darwin. Why not? Whether you're a Christian or an atheist or a Hindu or Muslim, Charles Darwin was a real guy. We know that. And he changed the face of science and what we know about biology. Let's teach kids that from 4 to 8. And the words rhyme. We have a copy for you, by the way.
Sweet.
And the words rhyme. It's fun. It's easy. It's a short book. Yeah, an adult can read it in 15 to 20 minutes. And it's very, very well produced. So.
And when did this book come out? On Amazon anyway?
I don't remember the release date. Yeah, it was January or February, I think.
So it's been out for a few months now. So you've gotten feedback then, I'm sure, from people who have checked it out.
We haven't. I think there was one 4-star review. And I think that
Son of a bitch.
I think that was the worst thing about it. And
What did they say?
I think that problem was they said it was too short. They wanted more information. So that was it's phenomenal reviews.
Good.
And if they're a distributor that are walking up to the table, we want them to place an order. A lot of them want to do consignment and say, hey, guys, send us 10,000 books. We'll put them all over the world, and we'll pay you for what we sell. That's great. As soon as I bump into $93,000, I'll be all over that, right? So we're trying to find that balance, and there's this whole business thing going on in the background. And so we met some really cool people at the expo that are really excited about helping us out. And the cool thing about it is multiple distributors are interested. We were approached by Smithsonian, who came to us, asked for a meeting. Myself and the author went into the meeting, and essentially what they've said is they want to license the books, stamp the Smithsonian logo on there, and distribute it to their museums all over the world.
Ooh.
And not only that, they want to say, now that you're under our branding, here's one of our scientists that we would like you to write a story around.
Okay.
So then our creative team goes back, Mario writes the story, our graphic designers, our illustrators put the thing together. I come in as a project manager and place the birds and the cliffs all in the right place, and we publish this through Smithsonian and print the book. So
that would be
neat. That's a huge opportunity for us. But then there's also all sorts of toy ideas, licensing opportunities. Pixar, Disney, they were there talking about potential film stuff. We had a quick conversation with PBS talking, hey, this could be a television series on PBS. I mean, there's all sorts of endless possibilities.
It's all fun conversation, and then you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just curious, if you're at the BEA, do you see a lot of other atheist, secular publishers or people writing about that stuff? They're trying to talk about that stuff? Or is it specifically like, I'm sure it's big for fiction, because I don't know where else they would. They're usually not on C-SPAN if they're writing, fictional stuff. But like, what other atheist type of stuff is out there? Or do we not participate in that sort of stuff.
It's not even talked about.
Really?
I would say the vast majority of the people who walked up, once they learned that the story was about Darwin, they would say awesome, and then they would whisper something about the crap in the school system or religious something. And if they dropped a bomb about being an atheist or, with Christianity taking over and roll their eyes, we'd slip them a Dogma Debate card and be like, check us out,
Right.
But I think that was only maybe 5 or 6 people that actually got cards out of the hundreds we talked to. We weren't there to push Dogma Debate at all. But I got to tell you, being at a conference like this, I can tell you why Christians feel marginalized sometimes.
Really?
Because we look at them and go, guys, you dominate the world. What are you talking about? The Christian publishers at these events are kind of like, just pat them on the head and go, you have a nice booth.
Well, because it's a huge audience, but it's a very niche audience. If you're working with like the secular crowd, you don't need necessarily the Joel Osteen type books.
Exactly. And most Christians, this is mind-blowing for a lot of people, most Christians don't take in Christian material. Most Christians in our country take in secular material all the time. When we say secular, we think what we do, talking about religion, talking about atheism. But secular, guess what? Starbucks is secular.
Right.
Coffee is secular. Bananas are secular, right? Stuff that just doesn't involve
According to
religion.
Ray Comfort, it's Christian.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Bananas was a really bad example.
But you're right. These are secular communities, and like the Christian publishing industry may not necessarily have a place at like they're not going to find a lot of appeal in a place like this.
Yeah, I mean there are some pretty big Christian publishers there. Yeah, but it's like you get a feeling that you walk in and L. Ron Hubbard's group was there. Eckankar, the cult, was there. They had their own booth, but it's like Christianity and Scientology and Eckankar.
It's all lumped in together.
They're all lumped in, like, here are the weird stuff. And everyone else, the 90-something% of the giant publishers there, everyone is secular. If you have a children's book about a boy who paints a car, that is secular. That's not going to be filed.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because I don't see a lot of secular publishers. I mean, I can only think of a couple offhand anyway that publish books specifically for atheists and whatnot. But I've been, I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast or not, but a couple years ago, I went to a homeschooling Christian convention in Illinois. And so that crowd is all the Christian homeschoolers, and it's a big event, and they're all there. And it's the same type of thing where, yes, tables down it seems like it stretches for miles. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's all of those super Christian books. Us with the atheist stuff and the traditional secular has nothing to do with religion stuff. Those aren't anywhere to be found in that area. They're specifically pitching the Christian books. And I'm looking through them, and because I'm very curious, I know what their science books are like, but I'm kind of curious, like, are their math books the same? What are their history books like? Ooh. And there's a slant on all of them in some way. Like, they'll find a way to work Jesus into whatever subject you want it to be. But at the same time, it's kind of amazing because I had no idea it was that big. Like, here's the Christian book to teach you how to play a violin. Like, they have everything covered. They have a Christian everything, but they have a world. So even if they don't have a place in the BEA or what have you, or at least they're not the big names there, they have another place they can go, and they'll be all right. Yeah. Even as a business, they'll be all right.
Right.
And I don't think we have that anywhere, it seems, because we're still small fries.
Yeah. I will say, I don't think I saw a single book with the word atheist on it. Yeah. There were no explicitly atheist publishers there. There was no, Pitchstone or anyone like that. And the people who do publish atheist books, like your Perseus, your Macmillan, Prometheus, they may be there, but they publish everything. They have Christian books too. And they have, so like Perseus is...
Or they're publishing academic books or things that appeal to more than just atheists.
There's stuff there by, Lawrence Krauss and Neil deGrasse Tyson, but they're just looked at as scientists, and they just talk about their science. Religion's not really addressed, so there's no major focus on that.
Huh. It's too bad.
You got me thinking about the math thing now. Is it like, what's 187 divided by 6?
1 + 1 + 1 = 1,
Pray about it. The answer is pray about it.
They just work it into the description somehow. I don't know, the math is fine, but the descriptions that they have, or here's why you should learn stuff to glorify God, whatever, they'll find a way to work it in. that's what was just fun to look through and kind of infuriating.
A Christian car wash. You wash the car to glorify God, praise Jesus.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, but they'll find a way.
Well, I'm gonna have a drink of water because Mecca Lekahai Mekahai Nihal.
I'll spike it for you later. You'll need it. So how is everything going with Dogma Debate? And I meant to ask you before we get to Dogma Debate. Last time I talked to you, we were talking about all the audiobooks you were doing, but you guys merged, right, with Pitchstone, or you sold it off to Pitchstone?
I sold the publishing piece to Pitchstone, but we stayed on as a producer for Pitchstone. So after the deal was done, the owner of Pitchstone, Kurt, said, we love the quality of the work you guys put out, so would you stay on as a producer? And I'm like, sure, that's not a problem at all. And so we signed the deal, and we ended up producing 2 Vic Stenger books right after that. I learned more about quantum particle physics and quantum mechanics.
His books are very long.
It was the 2 hardest books I've ever done in my life as a producer or publisher. It was very, very difficult, but I learned a lot, and he was a brilliant man. It was such a horrible loss, but I'll tell you, we stayed on for that to do the production, and it's been an awesome relationship. We love Pitchstone, but now we're able to focus on Dogma Debate and these Tiny Thinkers books pretty much full time, and it's so refreshing because owning a publishing company, I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but
thank you.
You're talking about negotiating licensing deals, back and forth emails for weeks with major publishers like Macmillan and people like that who will take weeks to respond to one email because they're one of the top 9 largest publishers in the world, and I'm trying to get one license from them for one book. Yeah. And then when you do get that license, now you have to pay for it, right? And then you've got to produce the book and pay for the production cost, the editing, things like that. A lot of our awesome volunteers, Justin Krebs is one of them, would come in and listen to the books. Alicia is one of them. Listen to the books for proofing, making sure there were no mistakes in them after the editing. Huge process, still making zero money. At this point, You've lost thousands of dollars.
No one's bought a copy yet.
It's not even available, right?
Yeah.
And then you go through the submission process, and you have to wait 20 to 60 days for Audible to approve it. Then it becomes available, and it starts selling that day. Well, I'm 90 days into me forking out thousands of dollars, and it goes on sale for one day, and you're not going to get paid for that for 60 days after that money comes in. And I hope it sells because I'm $4,000 deep into this one book. And so it might take 4 or 5 months to even break even, and sometimes you never do. Right. Sometimes you pay all this money for a book, and it turns out people just aren't interested in the audio version.
It's the same thing I've learned with even writing a book, too. It's a debate I've thought about, which is, do I want to put myself through that again? Because I've done it a few times in different worlds. One with like a mainstream publisher, a couple times on my own, and every time it's like, maybe I get paid with the real publisher. You get paid up front. Mm-hmm. Great. I hope it sells for them.
Right.
The other times it's like, all right, I'm making nothing, but I hope it sells for me.
Right.
And it never seems to go anywhere. And the question you have to ask is, okay, if you want to write something, I don't think people understand that if you write a book, one, unless it's a crazy bestseller, you're not really making anything. Mm-mm. Two is you got to take a lot of time if you want to make this a really good book. And you're probably not going to get paid whatever you think it's worth for that time. And who reads books? I don't know, other than the people at BEA. I don't know. I haven't met a lot of people lately who told me they read XYZ atheist book. Mm-hmm. And not compared to what it used to be. And now if they're looking to scratch that itch, I want to learn about atheism. I want to learn about whatever topic it is, at least that our community tends to be involved in. They'll do it through a different medium. Podcast, blog, whatever, YouTube.
Whatever, yeah.
So they're not necessarily buying the books. So, I've seen some really good ones in the past year or two. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know how many people are reading it. I don't think it's affecting. There's always a handful.
They're being used now for reference books. So what's happening is you watch the video, you find out, okay, there's this thing going on about Mormons. Where can I find more information about that? Okay, David Fitzgerald wrote this really good book about Mormons. It's called Complete Heretic's Guide to Western Religion. You find that book 1, The Mormons. You put it on your shelf, and then when someone argues with you about Mormonism, you go, wait a minute, flip. Here's what this says on this page, and I heard about this on the Friendly Atheist podcast. Right? That's really what these books are being used for.
So, which says a couple things. One is, no one's actually reading them.
Maybe.
Like maybe as a reference, yes. Or very few people are reading them. But two, that it's a long process to get into the hands. Because again, to use the example you just did, they didn't just buy the book. They went through another source first.
Right.
And then, that looks like an interesting place to learn a little more stuff.
Well, it's also good to make sure people can consume the data in multiple different medium.
Yeah.
And so that's where the audiobook, the Kindle versions, the e-readers, all of that stuff comes into play.
Yeah.
And when I sold Atheist audiobooks, we had sold, I think, a total of 27,000 units.
Yeah.
Through just my titles. So there's definitely people downloading and listening to
which is also a different medium as well, the audiobook thing, which is also different. Yeah.
But it's so from that perspective, all of the waiting on the money to come in, and then out of that, then you have to take, this is Brandy's favorite part, once all the money does come in, now a percentage of each one of those sales goes to our authors. Right. And I'm proud to say there were times where we paid out $30,000 or $40,000 to secular independent authors.
That is
we were able to put that money into the secular community because they were getting such a big cut of whatever profits were coming in, and it felt really good. We were taking our part of the money, putting it back into more licenses, creating more titles, more production, but it felt good to know we were writing checks for $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and people were able to start making some sort of living off of being an author because of what we were doing. All of that stuff, though, very complicated. Very time consuming. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking about customer support. Hey, this report was off by 6 books. What's going on? You overpaid me. Or we would send money to people and they just wouldn't cash the check. They just wouldn't for 6 months. They just wouldn't cash the check.
I know America has a money problem. That's not the one I was thinking.
Gosh, no. We'd send check after check after check. Then they wouldn't cash them. All the money would come back into our account.
They cashed all of them.
And then they would say, we'd get a call and go, hey, I never got your check. We sent you 7 checks. Oh, now you owe me $3,000. I'd like that now, please. What is wrong with you? Cash your damn checks. So all of that now is on Pitchstone. And I got to tell you, when I redid the strategy of Secular Media Group, I sat down with some very important people that I have a lot of respect for and asked questions. And one thing I kept getting was, focus on what you can be the best in the world at. I'm not going to get in the atheist T-shirt business. That's not what I'm good at, right? And I realized I was publishing, and I'm not going to be the best in the world at audio publishing. I think I'm up there when it comes to producing an audiobook. So why am I battling some of the most talented publishers in the world? I don't want to fight them. I want to join with them. So I want to get out of the publishing side of audio. I will be your producer. I realized Kurt from Pitchstone Publishing is a far more capable individual when it comes to handling those contracts, handling that publishing. He's done it for years longer. This is you, bud. You take this. I'll be one of your producers. Now I produce the content. He pays me to produce the content, and the content is his. Yeah. So now we are one of his producing arms. But yeah, I'm out of that side of it. And like you said, the physical copies of actual atheist books, I don't know how people are doing it. Kids' books, totally different story. Parents love to hold kids' books, read books to kids. The kids love to pick it up, run around the house with it. Totally different story.
People aren't doing like Kindle kids' books?
They are, absolutely.
Are they?
Absolutely, and we are too. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. This one's not available yet on Kindle for a certain reason. The simple version of Kindle is you just make it basically an e-reader PDF version of it. It's very flat, very simple. They have been working on a Kindle, what do they call it? Something like a kids book creator, so that it's interactive. So now you can tap certain characters, windows pop up, audio files can play, and they just released that. Yeah, they just released that. So I'm glad we didn't yet, because if we'd already released it in that version, then you have to update it and take stuff down. And so yeah, we're about to launch a whole new version of this book in an interactive.
I didn't even mean to ask you like, are you going to do it? I meant to say like, I can't even imagine kids reading a Kindle. I know they play on iPads and stuff when they're like really small now, but like I don't think I've ever seen a parent reading to a kid on a Kindle.
Oh, you can actually sync up the audiobook with the e-reader version and have a kid touch the text. Like maybe he can read it on his own first, and then touch the text, and it will read it to him.
Nice.
Right? Then he's seeing if he got the words right or whatever.
This makes parenting so much better.
Yeah, so that's what we've been up to, man. And
that's awesome.
Dogma Debate's doing great. We have an interview coming out. Actually, our last show was just audio of us being at a protest over this whole transgender bathroom debacle.
Issue.
Yeah, and one of our towns close by our house tried that craziness. And so we went and protested, and we ended up on the cover of the Dallas Morning News. Brandy holding this giant pink sign. What did your sign say? Come here, say that.
It wasn't about the water fountains in the 60s, and it's not about the bathrooms now.
Today,
yeah, today.
Yeah,
It's comparing it to segregation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that ended up on the cover of the Dallas Morning News. And ultimately, I mean, I'll let your listeners go check out the Dogma
We'll have a
Debate.
link to that.
Yeah, cool. And so there's tons of audio. I don't want to spoil it and tell them what happened, but we won, which is really rare, very rare. Spoiler alert there. we totally kicked butt, and so many people. We weren't even allowed to talk because we're not residents of the city, but a huge LGBT activist group showed up, and people spoke. I got to tell you,
feel nice.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people did a lot of work. We stayed there for 4 hours. Our daughter was with us as well, Talissa, and she was running around chanting, holding signs. It was so cool to see her involved in that process. But I got to tell you, the heroes to me in that were not only the members of the LGBT community that got up and spoke, addressing the city council in front of their peers and neighbors, having to say their address into a microphone. Mm-hmm. That's now going to go out on the internet,
right?
And say where they live, who they are, say that they are transgender, and this is why this is important to me. Those are the heroes and heroines of that situation. But I have to give a lot of credit to the conservative Christian Rockwall City Council. The mayor himself was pushing for this. Pushing for the ordinance to be passed that you have to go into the bathroom that matches your birth certificate.
Okay.
The community of Rockwall emailed all of the city council members, and city council member after city council member would say, you know, when I first saw this ordinance, I agreed with it because I want to keep our women and children safe. But you'd hear it in these southern drawl voices of these guys in a small town in Texas, and they're saying, now, I heard this ordinance, and I thought, yeah, I want to keep my mama safe. And then they'd go, but then I did some research, and this just is not enforceable. And you hear these southern accents using logic. And it's almost like an episode of No Religion Required, where you hear these southern draws making a lot of sense. And it's so cool and conservative.
Have you seen those liberal redneck videos?
Yes, I love that guy.
That guy's awesome.
I love it. So it's Republican after Republican making sense.
Yeah.
Going, guys, we're supposed to be for smaller government. We're telling people where to pee and poop.
Right.
Like that's an actual line. So we have audio from these guys talking. And at the end, one council member gets into an argument with the mayor, and they're fighting over it, and some cuss words are dropped, and it's awesome watching this happen. And in the end, the mayor didn't even get a second motion.
Wow.
For it to be up for vote.
He was by himself.
Completely by himself, bright red in the face, looking completely ridiculous. It was on the news. I mean, it's such a huge win for the secular community, for the LGBT community.
If it can happen in Texas, I don't care where.
And that's kind of why we did it.
Yeah.
That's why we did the show, to say, here's a formula. Here are the people that talk. Like Hilton came and spoke. Like we're one of the biggest retailers in your city. You need us here.
Yeah.
We pay $750,000 a year in property tax. That's going to go away. We're not going to put up with this. Mm-hmm. And there was an economic angle, there was a community angle, there was an equality angle, there was an attorney that spoke out and said, I'm right now offering up my services for free to the first person who wants to sue you. Huge cheers, right?
And you know, by the way, that the Christian right groups also say the same thing to the city council, that if you get sued, we got you covered. Except what they don't say is when you lose, they'll say we'll provide services for free as well. What they don't say is when you lose, you're on your own for paying the other side. They never tell you that. So it's one of the things that frustrates me every time, because it seems like when these... I write a lot about football coaches at schools that push their religion on the students, and they're like, no, it's okay. We can pray on the field because, First Liberty Council, just any mashup of family and American and council, it's a Christian group. Mm-hmm. They say they got my back. They have no idea that when you lose the case, which always happens, you have to pay the other side's attorney's fees. That's from the school district. They're not covering that.
Right.
So infuriating every time.
Is.
But it is, I mean, this is one of the things when you go to a city council meeting where they're discussing something it's such an easy moral issue and they're botching it. And we see the same thing with like people reading certain books in school districts, or they're trying to censor certain books or whatever. And you see people come out and speak like you're saying, and it's like, oh, that's so inspiring that someone's willing to stand up. And some of them are really young, and some of them you're like, I know you probably don't speak in public a lot, but holy crap, that was an amazing, heartfelt speech you just gave.
Yeah, absolutely.
There
were some physical things that happened. Like there was a trans man there, and he there was an argument going on. People were yelling back and forth at one point about the situation. And someone, I don't know if it was me or someone in the crowd, I forget. There was a lot of yelling. Someone said, and I know I said this several times. I think I said mine outside though. Someone said something like, "You don't understand that if you pass this ordinance, you will force men to go into women's restrooms. Like you don't realize it because trans men will now technically have to, because their birth certificate says female, they're going to, and that's what you don't want."
Right.
And this was going on.
I mean, people were posting pictures on Twitter or Instagram saying, hey, I'm in a men's bathroom right now, and I don't look like a man, but this is what you want, isn't it? And vice versa.
Exactly. There was one where this trans man, hairy arms, tattoos, cowboy hat, taking a selfie with women behind him in the restroom. This is what you want, North Carolina. This is what you want, Rockwall, Texas. And at one point during that argument, a trans man stood up and said, "Let me show you what it looks like." And he walked into the women's restroom. And before he shut the door, he said, "My birth certificate says female," and slammed the door. And at one point during a break, I went and stood in front of the men's restroom, and I said, "I need to see your birth certificate, please." Well, you find out in the audio, birth certificates are protected as a confidential document. Police officer asking for your license, you have to show that.
Yeah.
Police officer asking for your insurance, your registration, you have to show that. You do not have to show anyone your birth certificate. It's protected for up to 50 years after your death.
Wow.
So how the hell are you going to enforce me showing my birth certificate to a cop?
Yeah.
And I asked,
who are you to tell me what you are?
Exactly. I asked a police officer who was there. He's standing there like full on Marine. I mean, this dude was jarhead 100%. He's standing there, his chest out, his arms are folded. He's just standing there with no expression on his face. And I walk up to him. Like, you see people messing with those, like, you know, British guards or whatever. I walk up and I'm like, "So how do you feel about this?" He's like, "You find me out of uniform, sir, I'll be happy to give you my opinion." And I'm like, I was like, "Okay, so cop question for you. What happens when you get a call that someone thinks that, I don't know, a masculine female happens to be in a stall?
Right.
What are you going to do? Are you going to ask her to come out?" And he's just looking straight ahead. And I was like, "Are you going to ask to see her genitalia? Are you going to ask to see the birth certificate?" He kind of giggles for a second, and he's like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, if it's an actual situation, think about it." He's like, he just goes, "Look, I can't have an opinion on this stuff." And then he leans over and goes, "Thank you for what you're doing." And I thought, okay, I'm letting this guy off the hook. You know, it's really cool. So it's just nonsense.
But it's an interesting question, because even if he was on the other side, I don't know what he would answer either. And it's kind of like the old abortion question, like, all right, you want abortion to be outlawed, what should the punishment be? And how many people can't answer it because they don't have an answer?
How many years
because they
of
haven't
prison
thought
time?
through it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, it sounds good, but I don't know how I would actually implement this.
And the Republicans would go, "Oh, I know, we can cane them." Oh no, that's too much like Sharia law.
Right.
You know, you're forcing this thing to happen. So
it is infuriating.
It is, and it's crazy that they don't realize. Most of it's just ignorance, and that's what we came to realize, is that it's just ignorance. They think in their mind a trans man is me putting on a wig and high heels.
Oh,
and
I know.
Walking into a women's restroom.
That you could switch it on and off.
Right.
And that it's comparable to, oh, well, I'm a 76-year-old woman now, because that's what liberals are saying. Right. You don't get it.
Starting on Wednesdays, I'm going to be a couch. Mm-hmm. Like that's what they compare it to. But you're going to just that's not. It's a complete misunderstanding. And the
this is one of
thing for me.
Yeah.
Is that they did research and went, I changed my mind after reading on this for about 30 minutes. This is ridiculous.
This is one of the most interesting things because, like you, I always enjoy talking to people who are willing to have a conversation, even if we disagree about things. But when they're coming from the premise that doesn't make any sense, that they just don't get the situation, it's like, we can't have this conversation because you're starting in a place that makes no sense at all. Now we can't have this conversation. Now we're just talking past each other, and it sounds like cable, news shows.
I have to tell you, that's where I want that to be my niche.
Yeah.
I want to take people who most people feel like you can't even start the conversation, which I think Boghossian would call them pre-contemplatives.
Okay.
They can't even contemplate the idea or thought of them potentially being wrong. What he calls it in his book is they can't sit at the adult table. They have to sit at the kids' table. I disagree with him on that. I want to go to the kids' table. If he wants to put them at the kids' table, do it. I'll sit with them at the kids' table, and I find that to be the challenge. That's what I think is so fun about it.
I just posted this the other day on the website. Anthony Magnabosco is someone who does a lot of the Peter Boghossian street epistemology stuff. Right. All he's not trying to convert you. He's just like, hey, let me ask you, how do you come to your conclusions about your beliefs, whatever they are? How do you know this is true? Yep. Do you really believe this stuff, and why? And I'm not pushing you any way. I just want to throw these questions at you. And the interesting video that he just posted is, here's a guy I talked to in 2014, lobbed these questions his way, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it was. They never saw each other again, because that's how it works. But he did post the video online, Anthony did, and that was the end of it. Like, all right, that was that guy. Anthony even told me, he's like, I didn't like how I sounded in that video, but I'll put it out there, and that's what it went like. And then he got contacted by that guy, like more than a year later. By the way, I should say, when Anthony talked to him the first time, he asked him, like, do you believe in God? 0, no, 10, yes. Where are you in this? 10. 100%, I believe in God. And then just, okay, so how do you know these things? Whatever. All the basic questions about how do you come to your decision. That guy reached out to Anthony recently and said, hey, after we had that conversation, months later, I started doing my own research on the matter, and I started reading up on it. And a lot of the questions you asked me, I kind of saw responses from other atheists that he was looking up. Like, you don't know this stuff is true. Here's what other religions have to say. But, you dismissed that really quickly. Whatever it was. He listened to that. He's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And basically, the point of that whole conversation is that it didn't happen when they first talked. They just talked, walked away. No one changed their minds. But the seeds were planted.
Absolutely.
And over a year later, this guy's like, I'm an atheist now. And he wanted to reach out to Anthony to tell him that. And Anthony's like, I'm going to grab my camera. I'll be right back. So I want to hear what happened here, because he wants to improve himself. So tell me what I did that worked. Let's watch our conversation from 2 years ago and let's talk about this. But that's the sort of the thing that it would be really nice if, when we're talking to someone you disagree with, you could at least all come to a conclusion that, okay, I've talked on this podcast before and on the website, and I get shit for it every time, but I find it a really interesting conversation with people who are pro-life atheists. And it's always interesting because they're not using religious arguments to make their case. Yeah. So you would think, on the surface, if anyone were to convince me that I should be pro-life, it would be these people, because they have secular argument. And I listen to their arguments, and I'm like, that still doesn't make any sense to me. But go for it. Like, I'm listening. Tell me what you got, and none of it hits. But it's an interesting sort of thing. And if you could find a way to convince them to, like, no, just here are the facts. Hopefully we agree on those, and just take that with you. And I would like to think reasonable people who look at the facts would come to whatever that conclusion is.
Yeah, and we can't make the mistake to assume that because someone's an atheist that they're reasonable.
No.
Either. Your inbox probably looks a little bit like mine. And I'll say that that's why it is so important that you have a civil, diplomatic, or Socratic approach to believers. And I'm actually giving a talk in Little Rock on the 16th for the Free Thought Society of Little Rock. Or Free Thought Society of Arkansas. Anyway, that a lot of times when you get angry, you're in the middle of a conversation and you're talking with a Christian, you feel like you're banging your head against a wall, and you start getting angry at them, I think your anger is really at yourself, because what you've done is you've set this impossible sort of expectation that you're going to deconvert them immediately because they're going to. You're coming to.
How do you still believe in God?
Yeah, and you get angry and like, come on, listen to me. Well, are you angry at them, or are you angry because you've set this unreasonable expectation and now you're failing and you're like, no, we've only got 9 minutes left. Yeah. My bus is leaving. You have got to pay attention to me, right? That's really what it is. You're not going to deconvert them. If you walk up with a focus to deconvert that person right then, a few things are going to happen. One, you're going to fail. You're going to get angry about it. Then you're going to think these conversations are pointless. That's not what you're there to do. You're there to plant the seeds, and then not only that, you want to be a safe place for them to come back to ask questions. If every time you went to your father to ask a question, he snapped at you and said, well, not you specifically, the listener mostly, he snapped at you and called you an idiot.
Yeah.
Even if you had a valid question for him, you're not going to go to him. Nobody wants that verbal abuse.
There was a wonderful article, I forgot when it was. It was either a few months ago or something, Adrienne Chen in the New Yorker, where he basically talked about, I forgot her name, but she was like one of the daughters of the Westboro Baptist Church people, and she eventually left. I mean, she escaped the hell out of there, and I don't even know if she's an atheist now, but she's probably close to it. But basically, this reporter's like, how did you change your mind from Westboro Baptist Church, God hates all these people, whatever, to this? And she said she was the one in the Westboro Baptist Church that did all their Twitter stuff. Like, she was kind of their social media person. Mm-hmm. And she said someone basically just reached out to her and didn't treat her like an asshole. They're just like, where are you getting this from? And it started from like these public messages to each other, and she's shouting back at them, doing whatever it is she does. It moved to the DM, so it's more private conversation, but she was actually having the conversation with this random guy. And I think she said, like, that was kind of it. Like, he started nudging me in that direction to the point where she left.
Now imagine if that message was, you're a lunatic.
Right.
Or
it feels good, but you're not getting anywhere with it.
You believe in Santa Claus for grown-ups.
Yeah.
It's not... It may be therapeutic for you because you feel like you got beat up by religion and you want to beat up religion for your own therapy. I don't know that vengeance is okay. I understand it. It's not my thing. Think about how effective that's going to be. And that's another thing I mentioned in the talk is it's okay to be angry. Right? Anger is a feeling.
Yeah.
Have that anger. Don't try to tell yourself that feeling's not real. Let it inspire you. Great, but ask yourself, is angry behavior going to be productive to your end result?
Yeah. How many times have you changed your mind because someone yelled at you? It doesn't happen. Or called you names or whatever. Don't be a dick, whatever that
Right.
That
to be honest, there's a very, very small population that works with.
Right.
When you
probably not the majority, but for
close.
Most people, if someone says you're an idiot and here's why. I mean, I watch Fox News a lot because I want to know what they're saying. Mm-hmm. I'm never thinking, that's convincing, because they're talking down to you, and I'm sure it goes the other way too. But that's the thing. If you want to change someone's mind, it's probably not going to happen that way. And by the way, are you going to the Reason Rally?
I am. I'm actually the MC for the comedy show.
Excellent. So this is one of the things that's come up in the past few weeks, which is that Ray Comfort and a ministry of I don't know how many people. They're looking for volunteers and stuff to be out there. They will be there. There will be Christians there who will have their signs, I'm sure, who will be there trying to convince you to check out the Bible, because apparently atheists have never looked at it. But they're going to be there. So the question is, and here's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried that they're going to be convincing. I am worried that atheists are going to see it and they'll get pissed off and they'll get angry. And now, instead of in their hometown, now they're surrounded by a mob of atheists. And I kind of worry, like, oh my God, what's going to happen when people are yelling at each other and they're close to...
It happens all the time. It happens all the time. And here's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, there's going to be a time where you walk up to someone like a Ray Comfort and you say, how do you reconcile a loving God with 1 Samuel 15:3, where he commands Saul to murder infants and nursing babies? And when he stumbles on that problem and is like, that's something, we all deal with, and it's a peaceful, loving conversation, it might get 1,000 views on YouTube. Right. But someone else is going to be screaming, "You're a fucking moron!" That's going to have 1 million hits, and it's going to be funny, and then it misrepresents the atheist behavior, and it plays into this whole, gosh, these guys are so angry at God, you know?
Right.
And so...
And there are going to be people with signs that are going to be seen on social media too. And the funnier the sign, the more dickish you are with the sign.
Yep. And not only that, and Ray Comfort's been known for sticking a mic in someone's face, asking questions, and then going to the editing bay and making you look like a complete ass.
Yeah.
And if you think that's not possible, if you think you're smart enough to word it in such a way, go listen to the Herd Mentality podcast with Adam Reeks. He takes all kinds of people, including Ray Comfort, out of context, has a fake interview with them based on things they said, and it is hilarious, the things he can get you to say. He's done one about me before, just to pick on me, and some of the stuff he has me saying, I'm like, how is this even possible? So, some people may want to stay away from Ray. I'm going to seek out Ray. I would love to talk to him.
You will get a $25 Subway gift card, I heard.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, they're just coming there to love the hell out of us.
I know.
That's it. They're loving the hell right out of us. I would love to talk to Ray. I think I've talked to him one time and didn't realize it was him.
I've emailed with him. He's very nice.
I bet
I'm not joking. He's super nice online.
I bet Kirk Cameron is too.
I'm sure he is too. I know.
I got to tell you, I had a great conversation with Cy Ten Bruggencate before he went on stage to debate Matt. I was moderating the debate. He walks in. He's in flip flops. He's chewing gum. Offered me a piece of gum. Had his shorts on, and he sits down. We're doing sound check, and he looks over at me and he goes, "So why do you hate God?" And we both start laughing, and he's like, "Just messing with you, Smalley." And he hits me on the shoulder. Such a nice guy, so cool. And then he goes and puts on the suit.
Right.
And it's like he transformed into this, like now he's Captain Asshole and has to do this bravado and this talking over people and calling them names. And I'm just like...
This is one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast, which is that, you see that side of a lot of people, and I can talk to a lot of those people, I'm sure, and have these interviews and stuff. But what's more fun is just having this conversation when it is kind of face-to-face, and you can actually just get to know them a little bit. Yeah. Sometimes it happens when I'm not recording it or something, and there's some podcasts I've done with people I totally disagree with, and then we went out like for drinks or whatever, or I saw him in a different situation, no recording, nothing public, like whatever. Let's get drinks, we'll talk, and I'm sure this has happened to you too. They are so nice. They're fun to talk to. You can have a nice debate and stuff. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, I wish that was recorded. But they're really nice.
You know who I really like, who's on my show a lot, and my fans hate him now, is Blake Genta.
Who is that?
Blake is a guy, he was a college student when I met him. He asked a question at a Pete Boghossian talk that I went to in Dallas. After I told Brandy, I was like, I want that guy on the show.
Yeah.
So she went up and grabbed him and said, we'd like to have you on Dogma Debate. He came on, and that sort of launched his apologetic career. Yeah. He's been on my show like 5 times. He's debated Matt Dillahunty 3 times or twice, and now he's got his whole website and everything else.
So you're the reason these people are converting to Jesus.
Yes, somehow. Now I'm responsible for Christians or something. But he was already in apologetics courses under like a William Lane Craig type, reasonable faith type subgroup or something. So he was already headed that direction, but he sort of used Dogma Debate as his launching pad for Christianity. And I got to tell you, he says some things in studio that will make you so angry. Yeah. He once equated homosexuals to pedophiles. Yeah. Just like, well, they are pedophiles. Absolutely. And wait a minute, what do you mean? No, pedophiles are homosexuals after all. If a man goes after a little boy, he's going after a boy with a penis, therefore.
Hashtag logic.
And so it's so infuriating, but I stay calm and I go, do you see how that could be very offensive? Do you know the statistics? Do you realize how wrong you are? Do you understand the biology of pedophiles? Horrible. When the mics go off and we go to Denny's, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever talk to. He's caring, he's loving, he's got a great family, he's got a brother, and they'll come hang out with you. They're awesome people, and it's so hard to wrap your head around. How can you be so loving and so friendly and then say something so horrific about a group of people you know very little about?
Right.
What you call love is judgmental bigotry, and you don't even realize it.
Have you had this problem? Because I have had this problem recently, which is I have reached out to so many people through private channels, people who are just like that, who I'm like, I would like to talk to you. I know you live near me. Like, we could do this. It would not be hard. I'll come out to wherever you are. We'll do this. And it is so hard to get them to say yes. And I've gotten so close so many times, but ultimately they will find an excuse not to do it. And I think part of it is not because they think I'm going to convince them or whatever. No one thinks they're wrong about anything. But I think it's because, like, I don't know, they think being humanized or something is not, they will let their guard down maybe. I don't know what they're worried about, but it's frustrating because I'm like, no, just talk to me about where you're coming from some of this stuff. Because I make fun of you on the side all the time. The things you say are batshit crazy. Yeah. But go ahead, make your case. We will actually talk about. I'm not going to run away. It's not like I'm writing the post and I'm done when I want to be done. We'll have a conversation and we won't stray from the topic until we feel it's ready. And I feel like that seems like something they would want to do. And then, man, I've asked so many people and they've just either not responded or said no flat out.
Let me give you one little hint
Yeah.
that I use, and I get them a lot. Is the Bible, 1 Peter 3:15. So what I'll say to them is, hey, would you like to come on the show, talk about your faith? And they're like, no. And sometimes they'll either flat out say no, or they'll use a Bible verse, oh, you can't cast pearls before swine type thing. And I'll say, well, you know, 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be prepared to offer a defense for your faith, but do so with gentleness and respect. So even if they do it and they're nasty about it, I call them on the respect side. And if they refuse to talk to me, I say, so you're being anti-biblical? You're not going to offer a defense for your faith? Have a largely secular audience. What if God has sent me to talk to you so that you could have a microphone to talk to thousands of atheists?
This is the boat God is sending you in the flood.
Absolutely. This could be it. And so something like that happened. I won't say I duped her into. A Christian grandma somehow followed me on Twitter. I don't know how we got connected exactly. And she started responding to my tweets, and we were talking about hell and punishment, and she's like, I just love people. I love everyone. And she had this idea that secular people are automatically selfish. She used to be selfish, and she found Jesus, and now she loves other people. So obviously, if you don't have Jesus, you're a selfish jerk. And so I just kept asking her, come on. She's like, I'm not a professional. I'm not an apologist. I'm like, that's why I want you on.
Yeah.
My audience is sick of hearing every William Lane Craig wannabe come on and spit out all these potential theodicies and list off 11 philosophers that agree with them. Let's talk to a real human being with real life experience who's a grandma. Nobody wants to tell her grandma they're an atheist. Let me tell someone else's grandma I'm an atheist. She finally agreed to come on, and so that show is actually the show before last. So
yeah.
the transgender protest episode is 237. 236 is actually called Christian Grandma versus David Smalley.
Oh my God!
And it was a blast. She's a wonderful,
awesome.
wonderful woman.
Those are fun. I know I've said on this show before that I'm like we've been trying to get those guests because it's not fun necessarily when it's like, all right, I'll talk to an atheist. We'll just agree about everything, and they'll be. It's fine. I enjoy it, but it's more interesting sometimes when it's just someone that. This is not a situation I would normally be in where I'm talking to someone that I totally disagree with. We're not in the same circles, whatever. That's so much more interesting, but it's really hard to get people to agree to do that.
It is. And I think it's really hard, too, when you have more than one conversation with the same person because you will talk to them, you will ask them a question, they'll say, wow, I don't have an answer for that. I struggle with that. Okay, let them off the hook.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't keep drilling into that. Let them off the hook and say, it's okay. Look, the quickest way to get my listeners on your side is to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or I'm willing to look into that. Fine.
Show some damn vulnerability.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They're afraid to say, I don't know. Yeah. So if you tell them ahead of time, look, the best answer you could possibly give me is, I don't know. That's how you gain respect. That takes their fears away. Yeah. They're like, oh, wait. You mean I could say I don't know and that's a good thing? Absolutely.
This isn't, I don't know if this is the same thing, but this is where my mind went. People are afraid of admitting they're wrong, especially when it's public or something. But people have criticized Hillary Clinton for saying like, oh, I support gay rights and whatever. And they're saying, oh, but it's political expedience and stuff. You weren't there, 8, 10, 12 years ago when we needed, whatever it was, 20 years ago when we needed you. You were against it then, so now you are. And people are mad at her for flip-flopping on this issue because she wasn't there the whole time.
All right.
It's like, yes, people change their mind. She is exactly where you want her to be. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be mad that she changed her mind and now she's there?
Hemant, congratulations. I think we found something we disagree about.
Okay.
Because I'm not, and I think that's a misunderstanding. I don't think that anyone's mad at her for that. I think when you look at her and compare her with Bernie, who she's actually running against right now, not Trump, no matter how much she wants you to believe that. She's running against Bernie right now. When you compare her with him, she is looked at as leading from behind.
Yes.
He has been a visionary for 30 or 40 years.
I totally agree with you.
I
voted for him in the primary too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has been. I'm not doubting that at all. But I think this goes to the heart of like, okay, yes, she flip-flopped or changed her mind. Maybe she really did evolve on the issue or whatever buzzword they want to use that makes it politically okay or whatever. So the question is this an argument liberals should be using against her? Like, yes, she led from behind on the issue. Or do you say, whatever, she's here now and she's doing the right thing? And I'm not doing this to argue politics, but I am saying for people who change their mind on these issues, it is so tempting to play gotcha with people when you're arguing with them or debating with them, saying, look, I caught you in a mistake. Or they say, I don't know. Oh, look, you admitted you don't know.
Yeah, like, that's the worst thing you can do.
Don't be mad at them for that. No. They deserve credit for that.
You want to celebrate that. Yeah. Absolutely. And I fully embrace and appreciate Hillary finally catching up to the rest of America and saying that. I do. I appreciate that and I applaud that.
I think we're on the same page with that, by the way.
Yeah. But a lot of times when the Bernie supporter gets online and says, but she was against gay marriage, she supported DOMA, and the Hillary supporter or skeptic thinker or whatever sees that and goes, wow, they're mad at her for changing her mind. No, that's a misunderstanding. That's a misinterpretation of the comment. The comment is not angry at her for changing her mind.
It's for not being there when...
It's when you compare her to Bernie, she's behind, he's been a visionary. When you look at her history, she is behind the majority of America. She is behind history. And then you look at Bernie getting arrested in the, 60s or 70s
like
for protesting segregation. He was actually on the front lines fighting it, and she's up there saying stuff about DOMA and super predators and things like that. So that's that issue. And then the whole finance thing, where she won't release her transcripts, and he's like, okay, mine, I released them. They're done. You know, to me, I've loved Obama. I think Obama's done a decent job, a better job than any Republican would have done. Not a perfect president by any stretch, but we also don't know what he has to deal with behind the scenes.
Sure.
Like the whole Guantanamo Bay thing. He's like, well, I'm going to close it. I'm going to close it. Day one, they whisper one thing into his ear, and he's like, yeah, I can't close it. We don't know. We don't know what's going on. But I will say, I'd have never been mad at her for changing her mind. I celebrate that. I applaud that. I don't even get into assuming to know why she changed her mind. Oh, that's politically expedient. Or, oh, Bernie is the reason she's going more left. Now, I've seen her change just in this campaign on a couple of things, and he's pulled her more left.
Yeah.
And then he's publicly congratulated her on stage for finally agreeing with something. And then she puts a caveat in there and goes, as long as this gets done. And he goes, I watch those debates like a hawk. I live tweeted them. I've been following this thing very closely. I've never been upset with her for that. But at the end of the day, when you compare her with Bernie, he has been a visionary for years. And if he was a visionary on gay marriage, if he was a visionary on segregation, if he was a visionary on the Panama Papers, and you go line after line after line where he was ahead of the curve, that's a leader we need to get behind, because there's going to be stuff that we don't know about yet. And I want the guy who's been on the right side of history before it was politically popular. That's why I supported Bernie.
Let me ask you a different question. Just because I know this has been controversial in politics and atheism too. Jamie Raskin, congressional candidate. He won the primary. He is running for Congress. So how many people are running for Congress? Like, we're talking about 1,000 people total in the country who are running for Senate, Congress, and actually they're on the ballot. They have a shot at this. The understanding was this is the one guy running for that office who may actually be an atheist. And then the Washington Post last week comes out with an article that says he's backing away from that label. He's like, I'm 100% Jewish. I never said I was an atheist. I think those are both like direct quotes. And basically the argument, the American Human Association, which worked with Raskin and endorsed him through their lobbying group and everything, they basically said he didn't actually say, I don't believe in, or I do believe in God or anything. He's basically a secular Jew. He doesn't use the word atheist to describe himself. And Raskin even said, well, no one's ever asked me in a political context, and I would not answer in a political context or something. So here's where I'm going with this. It seems like we have a guy running for office who is an atheist. He seems to agree with it. He signed a paper that said he's non-theistic, though that's kind of in fine print. But he's not coming out and saying I'm an atheist. He's not coming out and saying I don't believe in God. He wants to make it a non-issue. I would vote for him because I like his views over whoever his opponent is on the other side. Is that something you should get mad about or upset about at all? That someone who has a chance of winning, probably will win if the polls are right, refuses to say, I'm an atheist. Because think of what that would do if he did.
I think that shows how scary cult-like the secular community can become. And this is the next episode of Dogma Debate that we're doing. It's a live show on May 18th. Is going to bring some of that controversy to light. Some of the stuff going on in the secular community that's being buzzed around, and it's like, stuff's being swept under the rug.
We have drama in our community?
Yeah, shocking,
What?
right? And people not wanting to call certain things out or not wanting to expose things. I understand it. We don't want to look bad, but we also don't want to be the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
We also don't want to say, oh, this priest has been really bad. Let's put him in another diocese, right? We want to say, hey, guys, this happened. Let's be careful moving forward. I don't want anyone else to be hurt by this. That's what it's about. It's about being honest. It's about journalism. It's about public warning and public information. It's not about you having to say that you're on my team.
Yeah.
Right? You could come out on your very next show and say, yeah, I don't like Dogma Debate. I think David Smalley's overrated. I wouldn't be mad at you. That's your opinion. I love what you do. You do a great thing for the secular community.
Why didn't I say to your face?
I mean, I would probably text you and be like, what the hell, dude?
Right.
But it wouldn't be a big deal. Like, I wouldn't be like anti-you all of a sudden, right? You could tomorrow start saying, hey, I'm going to call myself agnostic. I'd give you shit for it. I'd be like, hey, you're still an atheist. I would pick at you, but I wouldn't say, you must say you're on my team. We are not a cult. We are not a religion. So what if my uniform doesn't match yours? There are bigger issues to deal with.
So this is where I do agree with you on this. Here's where I come on the Raskin thing, which is, you know what, if you said right up front that was the case, that, you're Jewish. This is what Barney Frank said, too, former representative. Yep. He is Jewish. He never wanted to deny that label because he felt people might perceive it as anti-Semitic if he said, I'm not Jewish.
Fair enough.
Okay, fine. I don't care because I like the things you pushed for and stuff. With Raskin, too, the only reason I'm upset, because if he said I'm a secular Jew or I'm Jewish but religion doesn't play a role for me, totally wouldn't have cared, still would support, and I am still supporting him as much as I can from Illinois.
Sure.
What bugs me is that he was touted as an atheist to a lot of people.
But did he tout himself as an atheist?
I think he let people believe it use that label.
So what?
I'm mad because I think it would do so much if we had someone in Congress who said I'm an atheist and it became an issue, not a big issue, but like if we, just like we have people in Congress who are there's two openly Muslim people. There is one Hindu person.
I think there's
Congress.
an atheist too.
There is not.
Are you sure?
I am absolutely sure. Kristen Sinema from Arizona is unaffiliated. There was a rumor she was an atheist, but as soon as she got elected,
I know
put the kibosh on all.
There's like 30 or something that are closeted who have admitted to some group.
Which means nothing to me. Right, exactly.
Right. But I thought there was one openly.
Nope. Believe me, I have looked.
Really?
I would be shocked if you found someone I haven't found. But
can you research that real
please
quick?
do.
Brandy, I see you over there on your thing. I thought there was an openly atheist member of Congress.
No. Sinema is the only one who goes by unaffiliated right now.
Okay.
But she will not speak about religious views, which again, if you said that up front, I don't think I would care. It's the fact that when we said, oh, so you're an atheist, it seemed like, hey, if that means you'll vote for me, go right ahead. If you want to give me money because you think I'm an atheist, fine. I think that's what Raskin did too. And only now when the Washington Post is like, so are you really an atheist? Oh, I'm not an atheist. Because now he won the primary. Now he's in a real race. I feel like he's running away from it. I wish he would just say, oh, yeah, I'm not religious, but it's a personal thing. I don't talk about it. I want to focus on the issues. I would love it if they just said that and got it out of the way.
Well, but how do you know that that's his actual stance, though?
I don't.
I don't, exactly.
I want to know what his actual stance
You want him to say something.
I want him to give an honest answer.
Based on what you believe his position is.
No, I want him to give an honest answer on what he believes, and I don't know what to think because different groups that are close to him are saying very different things. Look, and I've heard behind the scenes
I'll say this.
It's
number one, someone else who has that same exact stance we have a ton of respect for.
Yes.
And that's Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Sure.
He has never, I don't think he's ever used the atheist word to describe himself.
But
as a matter of fact, in emails back and forth with me,
Yeah.
there was a huge debacle, and people have to go listen to my show with him to hear that I misunderstood him. I thought he was being condescending. I wrote this really crappy email back, and I had to apologize to him. But he won't call himself an atheist the last time I checked. Some of them just don't want to focus on that, and I understand that.
That I get. And I've said this on my website too, where I'm like, I really don't care about this guy's label. I don't care.
You just want the honesty.
I want the honesty, and I feel like it would be so important to.
Now, let me ask you this:
if you are an atheist and you're hiding it, you're doing a disservice to all the other atheists who might want to run for public office, but don't because they think it's a taboo.
Maybe. Now, what happens if he says, "Okay, Hemet, just for you,
this would be an awesome conversation.
I'm an atheist," and then what if he loses the election, and the conservative gets in there? But you're happy because you got your honesty.
No, I want him to win. If he thought he was going to lose by saying it, fine.
Right, but then he can't be honest. He can't come out and say, I can't talk. Bernie's
maybe I'm not explaining it as
Bernie
well.
said the same thing, very close to it.
But Bernie never suggested he was an atheist. He never let anyone say otherwise. Every time I've heard Bernie speak about it, when people ask him point blank, "What's your religion?" and stuff, he talks about how he's Jewish, and he talks about a very, I'm using the word, humanistic sort of religion that he believes in.
We're all in this together, that kind of stuff.
Fine. You don't want to call yourself whatever, an atheist, if you are one, if you're not one. But you're very much open about, like, look, I don't talk about religion. I don't wear it on my sleeve. This is who I am.
No, I'm in that boat with you that I want them to be upfront. I want them to be honest. I want everybody who can come out safely to come out. I'm in that boat.
Yes.
But in the instance where the public has labeled him and then he's running for public office, ultimately his decisions are going to be in our best interest, right?
Yes.
But maybe it is good that right now there's just predominantly Christian politics in America. Maybe Christian to politics is too terrifying. I mean, sorry, Christian to atheist in politics
is still
too
much
terrifying.
of a taboo.
Just like Christian to Muslim,
sure,
would be too terrifying. Maybe Christian to Jew is the right step. Why? Because Jews are considered a protected. Hey, don't be anti-Semitic. Don't be this Hitler thing. Horrible. Let's be very.
And I think
sensitive
even when
to
they've
them.
done polls, black, woman, Jewish, gay, even.
Exactly.
Are no longer the taboos they were, but Muslim and atheists still are.
Maybe this is the proper steps, and maybe we just need to be patient. Look like this.
Yeah.
When Christians are in my studio and they say horribly offensive things, I sometimes, and I get so much shit for it from my listeners, like, why didn't you call him on everything he said that was wrong? Look, sometimes I let these things go because there's a bigger picture. And I go, I understand that. And then whenever they're wrong about something, I don't launch and grab a hold of that and beat them up over that. I say, oh, that's great. You know what? You don't have to have an answer for that. And I move on because I know that seed's been planted. I know that it's stepping in the right direction. Maybe this is what has to happen for our kids to be able to run as openly atheist. Maybe this is the proper step.
Fair enough. Let me ask you one last question about that then. Let's say you have someone who's in politics right now, who is in Congress, incumbent. No one's worried about losing their seat, right?
They're worried about losing their seat all the time.
But there's some of them who are totally safe. They could, whatever. They're not going to lose it. You mentioned those like 20 to 30 people who may be closeted. Mm-hmm. Should they ever come out while in office?
I would like to see it, but I don't think it's my place to tell them when they should label themselves publicly.
Okay.
I think it would be a socially responsible thing to do.
Yes.
I think it would be great for the secular community. I think it would help normalize non-belief.
Yes.
To say, hey, I've been a good guy all this time. I've been voting for these things. Here's what I did. And yes, I'm an atheist. I would love for it to happen, but it's not my place to tell another individual what they need to do.
No, I'm not saying, hey, you have to come out themselves. Now. But I would love to see them to do that.
I would love it. Yeah.
And I think I'll add on to what I said before. I would genuinely get mad. I got mad at Barney Frank, too, in my head. He doesn't care what I think. But I got mad at Barney Frank, too, when after he left Congress, after however long he was in there, he went on Bill Maher's show, and he made a joke that suggested he, too, was an atheist.
Sure.
And in the back of my head, I'm like, I know he's a super liberal guy. He's so pro-gay rights. He's been so awesome on all the issues I care about. But he couldn't say that one, even though he was not in danger of getting reelected. And
I would like for them to do that. I would. I just,
And by the way, later on, he said he's not really an atheist. He never thought about it. Same answer we're getting from Eska now, which, okay, if you're not, then don't say it. But for a while there, I'm just like, you could have made a serious difference to a lot of people, even more so if you had done that.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, it
you're
pisses
right.
me
No,
off.
you're absolutely right. But I wonder, too.
Says me, by the way, I'm not running for anything, so it's very easy to say all this.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. There's a certain, and we've got confirmation from Brandy that you're exactly right. There's not a single.
Yeah,
there's
there's
not a
none.
single one. I thought there was one. Maybe there has been in the past.
Pete Stark was.
Pete Stark.
Sorry,
and
he
also
was.
Sean Faircloth as well. Was he out?
He was in a state legislature. And by the way, Ernie Chambers is one of the highest ranking. Nebraska has only one chamber of Congress, only state that does that. He is their highest ranking senator there, openly atheist and very open about it. He is awesome. But we have very few people like him. But yeah, Pete Stark, by the way, after he came out as an atheist, he said he was non-theistic. Mm-hmm. That was the phrase. And he was a Unitarian, but he didn't believe in God. After he came out and said that, after a couple decades in public life, in Congress, he had to run a re-election campaign, got reelected. It didn't hurt him. And then I think the next cycle around, maybe that was 2012 or 2014, he did lose the race, but it wasn't because of the atheism thing. There were plenty of other reasons he lost.
That's a really good sign.
I hope so. And that's kind of why I'm like, if you have a chance and you're going to win or you're in Congress, you could make a huge difference here by coming out.
Seeing a secular Jew go as far as Bernie Sanders has, seeing London elect a Muslim mayor.
You have to feel very optimistic about
it's headed the right direction, folks.
Be patient. I pointed this out on my site too. Hillary Clinton, out of the three remaining candidates, Hillary Clinton may be the most religious person running for office, which is ridiculous because
I tweeted that the other day. I said, do you realize that the GOP is about to put up a less religious candidate than the so-called progressives?
Yeah.
I mean, she is dropping the G word every chance she gets. I can't wait for her to be elected so I can live up to my God-given potential. I want to know what that is. It's phenomenal. Meanwhile, Bernie is saying things like, we're all in this together. That's my belief. It's spiritual. It's humanism.
And for all the criticism I've heard of Bernie Sanders from whichever side, the Clinton side or the Republican side, no one goes after the religion thing, by the way. They don't like him for plenty of other reasons, but that's not one of them, which, again, that's a very optimistic sign that it seems, as we're talking about Donald Trump dismantling the GOP and maybe putting the end to the religious rights power, it seems like religion's not a factor.
Does that mean that socialism is becoming a scarier word than atheism?
Maybe.
Maybe that's what's happening here. Who knows?
Or, religious issues, all the trans issues we're seeing now. Religious issues are still a factor, but religion itself with the candidates, at least this time around, no one's talking about Mitt Romney believes in a weirder religion than we're used to.
Right.
Or Barack Obama, what religion is he? That's not in play now.
It's not. And I wonder, it'll be interesting if it happens if it's Hillary and Trump.
Yeah.
Because that dude, I think Trump's an atheist.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to label him either, but
I believe he is. I don't care what he says.
I do think he's faking his Christian.
Absolutely.
I think just like everything else, he doesn't think about it. Religion isn't a thing for him. That doesn't make him an atheist. That just makes him he's apathetic to it.
Right.
He's an apatheist. He doesn't think about this stuff. But yeah,
every time
he talks, he's faking
You will talk
it.
about women. You will call people fat pigs. You will say that Megyn Kelly's bleeding out of her wherever. You will say the most horrific things. Someone asks you your favorite Bible verse, and you say that's a personal matter. I don't want to talk about it. And then the one time you do, 3 weeks later, you have the nerve to say 2 Corinthians. Guess what that means? That means you got an email or a text message, and you glance down and said, some campaign manager somewhere typed that to you. You've never even heard it spoken.
Assuming you would get it.
Yeah, and he's totally, and he's even said, I just don't bring God into the thing. We did a thing on Dogma Debate one time where I read quotes and said, try to guess which candidate said this. Trump was like the most secular. He was rattling stuff off, saying, "Yeah, I just don't bring God into the equation, and when I deal with a problem, I just deal with it. God's not part of the issue for me." Like, it's not Bernie.
And this is why I'm saying, like, I don't care if he's labeled. Donald Trump could call himself an atheist. It doesn't mean I want to vote for him.
I really hope he doesn't. I don't want to claim that, dude. If he's an atheist, it's only because he was born that way, and he's just kept on floating down the river with. He's never needed religion. He's never thought about religion.
He's never had to think about it. Nothing's totally gone wrong in his life that he's like, I wonder about these existential questions. No.
It's is my helicopter gassed up? Like, that's his biggest worry right now.
Yeah. And then he just pays someone off and they'll take care of it. Like, it's not something he has to think about, which is very different from, I think, Hillary Clinton, who I think has systematically thought it through, like, how she wants to do it. Whatever.
I think she sees it as, let me gain as much of the Republican vote as I can.
Sure.
Because if she did the whole secular thing, and that's my issue, she is the least trusted candidate, and Bernie is the most trusted candidate. When you line them all up, or I think maybe
let me rephrase.
Trump.
I don't know if I personally would say trusted. I think you're right if you said inauthentic or something. I don't think she's authentic, but I do trust her on most of the issues. I think she's way more war hawkish than...
It was a CNN poll that they quoted, that she was the least trusted, and they were talking with a Hillary supporter, trying to make the Hillary supporter somehow defend that she's least trusted, and she didn't. She was like, no, that's what the polls say, and it just she kind of rolled with it, so that's why I took it as fact. Yeah. I didn't go fact-check it myself.
But yeah, I think that's what the sense I get. I'm like, yeah, I know she's trying to do the political thing, but that's the bubble she's been in for like 30 years now.
But look, Emmett, at the end of the day, when she gave a speech to a financial industry and refuses to release the transcript, look, we've known since like fourth grade, when you have evidence that you don't want to show me, you clearly have something to hide. That's just what that means.
I don't know why. That one just doesn't bother me.
I would love to know. I want to know if she's saying, when I get elected, I'm going to do some things and I'm going to make things easier.
Do you think she did that, though? I don't believe that for a second. That doesn't seem like her style.
I'm not accusing her of it.
I know you're not.
What I'm saying is, if there's nothing in there we should be worried about, why doesn't she release it? What are you worried about? Why not?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, I think. And in her mind, I think
she says, when everybody else does it,
that's a stupid answer.
She's not running against the Republicans yet. She's running against Bernie. He said he would do it.
Right.
And so when she hides information, I think that's another thing. People go, you're hiding. Donald Trump.
I got to say, that one just doesn't bother me.
Trump won't release his taxes.
That also doesn't bother me one bit.
I'm just saying.
They also, as we're recording this today, they announced that like he played his own PR person.
We heard that on the way over here.
Hilarious, and also doesn't bother me. It makes him seem stupid again, but like doesn't bother me one bit. There are more serious issues. Let me ask you one last question, then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
Clearly supporting Bernie Sanders. You like Bernie Sanders.
Yep. It
looks like she is going to win the nomination.
Now, I know what's coming.
If Elizabeth Warren is her vice president, does that change the do you say like, all right, you know what? Whatever concerns I had about the financial stuff, she balances it out. So it's kind of like having the Bernie wing of the party on her ticket. So I have no qualms about putting them. I mean, I assume you would vote for her anyway.
Yeah, that's something that I plan on talking about on Dogma Debate very soon, because 4 months ago, I boldly said, no matter what, I'm voting for the Democratic candidate. It's at the very least, it's a vote against the idiocracy that's going to be a Trump presidency. I'm not going to let that happen. My vote's going to be at least for the Democratic candidate. And then I've challenged people on my show, even in past elections, Obama versus Romney, all this stuff. People would come on my show and be like, I'm for Jill Stein till the day I die. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And then we had this whole debate on, do you vote with your conscience or do you vote strategically? And go, look, Jill Stein is not going to be our president. So I said before on the show, and I really offended someone because I wasn't thinking about it. I said, look, if you vote for Jill Stein, you're throwing your vote away. Oh, my God, they lost it. So I went on the I side with thing. I did the test. I aligned more closely with Jill Stein than I did anyone else, but I supported Obama in the election. They called me a sellout. I said, you're throwing your vote in the trash. There was anger at the table, right? But I understand both sides. Some people really want to vote with their conscience, and I get it. Look, Hillary has been kicking Bernie's butt, and it doesn't feel good. It makes you upset. Hillary also with the whole superdelegate crap, the whole taking money from the Democratic Party, the way these things. I mean, if you watch Young Turks or you watch MSNBC, there are people on both of those networks going, this is corruption. They are stealing this election from Bernie. This is not fair. Bernie would win a state and she would get more delegates than he did. Why? They're also counting the superdelegates before they're actually filed, right? Mm-hmm. So it gives the
impression that she has more
that
support
she's
than
winning.
She does.
So then people go, I don't want to vote for the loser.
Right.
So that gets her pledged delegates that she probably wouldn't have had. Mm-hmm. So they are it's sort of like someone coming out saying something about the stock market, and then by them saying things, they actually affect the following day of the stock market. That's kind of what's happening. They put the numbers up on the screen and make it look like Hillary is just dominating Bernie. And then that's really not the case because the superdelegates can change their minds. I disagree with the whole superdelegate process. It makes me not even want to be a Democrat the way some of these things are actually going down. So there's a lot of frustrating things happening that makes me want to back out and potentially say, I don't even want to vote. I don't even want to be a part of this crap. I want to change my registration to independent from Democrat, and that starts to make me want to pull out of this whole thing because I don't like the way this is done. I'm a member of the Democratic Party, and I think it's filled with disgusting corruption. Now, I'm still having my own internal debate. I'm leaning more towards what I said originally. I still want to support Hillary if she is our nominee. Because, for one, I'm a Democrat, and I said that's what I would do. I want to hold up my end of the deal. At the same time, I feel like she's getting it not illegally, but unethically, to say the least, and I'm not okay with that. So if I vote for Hillary, it will not be a vote for Hillary. It will be a vote against the Republican Party. And so I want to have that whole debate on the show and talk to someone who is like, absolute Bernie bro, gonna take Hillary down, vote for Donald Trump.
I don't get that one.
I don't either. But I think the science goes something along the lines of if they want to have corruption, if they want to support Hillary, they deserve Donald Trump. This is corruption. Let's give America what
Bernie
they deserve.
didn't win. I'm going to burn this place to the ground.
Yeah, I'm taking my ball and going home. Yeah, and that I'm not okay with. And so I want to talk to someone about that on the show. But that's my internal struggle.
I think for me personally, it's like, okay, I get it. I know why people like Bernie. But if he doesn't get the nomination by whatever means it is, how do you look at someone who is LGBT that you consider a friend in the eye and say, sorry, I'm voting for the Republicans in this race?
Absolutely.
How do you do that with a heart?
Yeah.
I don't get it. All right, we're wrapping this thing up.
Good point.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for coming here. Thanks for recording this.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I've never been able to be in person with you, and I've enjoyed it.
Me too.